Hey guys, welcome back. If you don't know the difference between litigation and corporate law, do not feel badly. You are not alone. Most practicing litigators don't really know what corporate law is, and most corporate lawyers don't really know what litigation entails. And so if you're a law student or thinking about going to law school, the confusion is amplified because they don't really explain either. And so that's why we made this video, to explain exactly what litigation is, exactly what corporate law is, to give you guys a better understanding of the two biggest umbrellas of law, not only so that you are just better informed, but also if you're trying to choose an area of law to go into to help with that decision. So if you guys are interested in that, then keep watching. Today I have a very special guest, Brett Sankis, who also makes YouTube videos on law-related topics all across the board, including new associate videos and with a particular emphasis on M&A. And so we're going to go through a few of the biggest topics and the biggest differences between litigation and transactional law.
Hi, Angela. Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. I appreciate the introduction. And as you said, I do videos on all sorts of things, but a specialty in mergers and acquisitions and just general business and legal issues, and then new associate training. And I know, like you, that's a very near and dear to my heart space, because when I was a young associate, I felt like I had absolutely nothing to turn to. So I appreciate you having me.
We're going to jump right in first and foremost to what is the basic work of a corporate lawyer.
It's not something they show you on TV. It's not very exciting looking work. It can be exciting to do. But our day, you can think about corporate lawyers, number one, they're heavy into contracts. So their world is based in creating, interpreting, negotiating contracts. So when businesses do business with each other, if they go raise some money, if they contract for services from another business, any business deal is put down on paper. So we need to work with our clients to understand what it is they're doing strategically, and then take their business idea, their business deal, and commit it to paper.
To give you guys an idea of the litigation process, you have the pleading stage, where if you're representing the plaintiff, you filed the lawsuit. If you're representing the defendant, you're defending against the lawsuit. Then you have the big discovery stage. And the discovery stage is where most people spend most of their careers, because it's so long, it's so involved. If there's experts in the case, you have expert discovery as well, working on expert reports and deposing experts. Then you move into the pretrial stage, which is where you might file your dispositive motions, so motions for summary judgment, trying to get parts of the case to go away, either by winning them outright as a matter of law, or getting them to go away because there's insufficient evidence. And then you move into the trial stage. And the trial stage is the most fun for a litigator. It's also the stage that comes up the least often, because I think it's something like less than 3% of civil cases actually go to trial. And so most of your career is going to be spent in that first sort of 90% of the case life. Could you talk a little bit about sort of what the world of maybe a first and second year associate will look like, and what the world of maybe a mid or senior level associate would look like in terms of what they're doing day to day?
My work as a young corporate associate, first, second year corporate associate at a huge law firm, was not very substantive. I mean, it was really looking for proofreading documents, going to put together like binders of documents, senior associates giving me changes to go like type in, things that almost felt like a paralegal could do. You didn't need any law school training. And there's a reason for that. It's because you don't have any idea how to do the corporate associate job when you come in. And the training is not tremendous. I think law firms are not really known for their training programs, and they're busy. And historically, I mean, years ago, I don't know if this has changed much, but back in the day, the clients would sort of pay for the junior associates to just be along for the ride and watch and see and pick things up. And that just kind of worked. I think by your third, fourth, certainly fifth year, even at a major firm, you'll be running deals, smaller deals, not billion-dollar deals or something, but there'll be smaller deals in-house that you'll basically be the point person and pulling them together, and project management and getting everything drafted and going to a closing.
Oh my gosh, I wish I could say that it were different, but as a young litigator, so first, second year, you're dealing with a lot of documents too. And so The very infamous document review that you may have heard of is what it gets delegated to young associates all the time. And that's basically looking at documents and determining if they're relevant or not to the case, or privileged or not. And that can get to be very long hours, and that really is what burns people out, is document review, 11, 12, 13 hours a day, and nothing substantive. And so hopefully at even a big law firm, you're starting to get in that first and second year slightly more substantive projects. And one of the favorites to give young associates are research projects. And so they'll give you little pieces of briefs or little pieces of the case strategy to go research to see if there's a cause of action, if there's a defense, if there's an issue that can be raised in a motion. As you get into your third, fourth, fifth year, you get to see the bigger picture of litigation. And that's what makes it really fun. That's where it starts to get exciting, because you get to know, why are we even looking at these documents? What is the case strategy? Who are we deposing and why? What kind of motions are we bringing and why? What is the purpose of this case on a larger scale? All right, Brett, and the next thing I wanted to ask you was the types of clients that you're working with in corporate law.
I think a lot of this is driven by the practice and the size of the firm. So when I was in big law, you wouldn't really have individual clients. I mean, it was possible they'd be super wealthy individuals, but you're generally working for large, half the Fortune 500 was a client. In terms of choosing between corporate and litigation, understanding the differences, I feel like, just to put a point on it, I feel like they're similar in this issue, in that the size of the firm is going to drive a lot about whether or not it feels like you're working for a huge organization and you're just sort of another cog, versus some individual who you could really sort of feel more of the emotional effect of things. So there was, back in big law, it was exciting to do the front page of the Wall Street Journal deals, right? And that's great, and that has its own place. But sometimes it's really more, it can be more satisfying to help a much smaller company, or an individual who's the sole owner of a company.
In theory, in litigation, you can have a person suing a person suing a company, or a company suing a company. At a larger law firm, it's generally going to be big company versus big company, and it can be for any number of things. So I worked in patent litigation, and so generally what the cases looked like was a company that had a patent suing another company for allegedly using their technology. It can also be an individual, so say an individual inventor with some patents suing a company who is allegedly using that inventor's technology. And so litigation can take a lot of different forms, but yeah, if you're looking at working at a law firm, that's generally what it's going to be, is company versus company. And Brett, to your point about interacting with the client, I think that really drives home the litigation and makes it personal. It makes you feel like you're helping someone, something that you really don't get as a young associate. And so as you move up the ladder and as you become a mid-level or senior level associate, then you're included on those calls with clients, and you really get to see why this lawsuit was filed in the first place and what the company or the individual is trying to get out of it. And you get to see how the victories affect them and how the losses affect them.
And I'm really curious about expectations and reality. Like when you were coming out of law school and you were probably super excited to get this job. We all are, like, oh my gosh, right? I'm going to be paid what? And this is like, yeah. And when you got into the job, like, I mean, no one loves every minute of it, but like, how different was it? How disappointed or satisfied were you? I'm really curious about what you thought versus what turned out to be the case.
Going in, I think all litigators are thinking trial, right? So that's what you see in the movies and on TV, and you're thinking, all right, I'm going to get in here. I don't know how this works, but I'm going to trial. And then, of course, once you get in, you realize that those trial opportunities are a lot more rare than you were expecting. Now, it was sort of an interesting point for me because I was terrified of the idea of going to trial. As a litigator, it's just so natural for them to put you in one of two categories. You're either a corporate lawyer or you're a litigator, regardless of the fact that you don't have experience doing either of those two things. But you start out, you're a litigator, and so they start making you do these public speaking exercises and presenting things in front of the partners and other associates to practice. And the idea of arguing in a courtroom scared me to death. I had never done mock trial, I'd never done moot court. I'd never done debate in high school or anything. And so even though in theory the idea of trial sounded interesting and fun, it also scared me to death. And so I was actually sort of relieved to hear that, these opportunities don't come up that often, because I was really into research and writing. That was where I felt strong. That's where I felt comfortable. And so when I started off, I actually was a little relieved to hear that I wouldn't be shoved in front of a judge on day one. And so what about you? So expectations versus reality in terms of being a corporate lawyer?
Most corporate lawyers, I think, were similar to me, which is why we didn't even really know what the job was. But I think the delta between like what we expected and what we got, I didn't have any expectations.
Right.
They did. So right. I have wondered litigators who they watch LA law, they think that's going to be amazing, this is what you do, and then they go to law school, want to do it, and then they get in the job, and it's really different if the come down is really difficult.
Okay, Brett, and then I also wanted to ask you, just sort of generally, what is the most challenging part of being a corporate lawyer, and what is the most fun part?
Probably most challenging we touched on a little bit, which is you don't know anything about what you're doing. You are really like a fish out of water. You're wondering, what is this? What's going on? It's very difficult early on, and you've got a lot of it, especially in big law, a lot of uncertainty. It's a very meritocratic environment, a very type A environment where people do sort of make themselves feel better by making other people feel less a little bit. It's like uncertainty and fear is like part of the equation, kind of like law school a little bit. Also, you described document production in corporate work that's called due diligence. That can be just mind-numbingly boring. And also the environment, they tend to be the firm I was at was very hierarchical. If you were 1 year ahead of the others, you just pushed, they say something flows downhill, right? So people sort of push down on you. So there was not a whole lot of it was not a very nurturing environment, and there wasn't a whole lot of respect for your time. I would be told to just sit around and wait for the assignment I'm going to give you. And you're sitting there at 7, you order dinner, sitting there at 8, you pop into the senior associate's office. Is it, you ready for me? No, I'll get to you. You pop in again in an hour and a half. No, I'll get to you. Next time you go around, their lights out and they're home. But on the positive side, like one of the things we touched on this before about like by your second, third, or fourth year, third or fourth or fifth, you're running deals. That's really satisfying. For all the lawyer jokes out in the world, like, most of them want to be, we have clients, we have fiduciary duties to them. Like it's a special thing. Most people take it seriously and they want to do that. So when you get in the stage where, hey, the client's calling you, hey, what about this? What about that? What should I do? Now it starts to feel like, hey, I'm that. It's very satisfying. So that's why challenging and fun. I definitely want to hear from you, Angela, on the litigator side of things, the good and the bad, best and the worst.
So challenging versus fun. I would say that as a young associate, similar to corporate associates, it's the challenging part is getting these sort of bite-sized tasks that you don't really know how it plays into the bigger picture, right? So we talked a lot about document review and sort of one-off research assignments, and you don't really know how it's feeding into the broader case. That's really difficult. As you start getting to become a mid-level associate, the part that starts getting difficult is having multiple partners and on multiple cases giving you things to do, because partners, generally speaking, don't communicate very well at all, and they're not really interested in who else you're working for. And so they'll come by your office and they'll send you emails telling you that they need certain things by certain deadlines. And as you get on multiple cases and these deadlines start crossing, it gets very challenging to know what to work on and when and how much time to allocate to it and who to answer to first. And so that is a lot of management of people and also being very communicative and knowing yourself and knowing your work. And that just takes time and repetition to get good at, because you have to know how long it takes you to write a motion or to prep a deposition outline or to draft jury questions, those sorts of things. So that gets tough. And then as a more senior associate, what you're expected to do as a litigator, and it sounds like as a corporate attorney too, is develop client business. And I think that scares associates and possibly litigators more than anything else in your law career, is this expectation to build business, because we were never taught that. Our entire training is how to be a good lawyer, and then all of a sudden we have to turn into business people and develop a book of business, and there is so little training out there on how to do that. And it takes time to teach someone how to do that, and people don't necessarily want to take the time to do it. And so that's the challenging stuff. I would say that the most fun, which I know we touched on this earlier, is but anytime that you feel like you're being a real lawyer, anytime you're working on something substantive, and that's where you're drafting the entirety of a brief, that's when you're taking a deposition, that's when you get to make any sort of oral argument in a hearing or a trial especially, that's sort of the golden ring, so to speak, of litigation. And so anytime you feel that your contribution to the case is something important, that's where it gets really fun. Well, Britt, thank you so much for doing this video with me. This was amazing. I know that there are so many questions out there about litigation versus corporate and what we do and what it means and what life looks like. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're very welcome. It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me today.
That's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and special thanks to Brett Sankus for coming by. I'm going to link his YouTube channel in the description below. Like I said before, he does all kinds of law-related videos, including new lawyer trainings and videos on transactional and corporate work, especially mergers and acquisitions. So make sure you guys check him out. And if you guys like the videos, be sure to give it a big thumbs up and let us know what part of all of what we talked about really spoke to you. And of course, if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and click subscribe, tap that notification bell, and you will be able to see new videos coming out every Tuesday, which is where I'll be. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.